and welcome to another Up From the Vaults episode. My name is Tim Uebergang and I'm the Curator of Horticulture at the University of Melbourne System Garden, the university's Botanic Garden. Today I'm going to talk to you about the work of botanical illustrator Margaret Stones, who is recognised internationally as one of the most important botanical artists of her time. The University of Melbourne Art Collection is really fortunate to hold a substantial number of artworks by Margaret Stones from around about the 1940s onwards. I've been curator at the System Garden for around about 15 years, and I've had the amazing opportunity to build on a living collection that dates back to 1856, when it was first established by Professor Frederick McCoy, who was the first Professor of Natural Sciences at the university. He set the garden up as a teaching garden for students studying botany. And it remains to be one of the oldest teaching gardens in the country today. It's called the System Garden because the planting arrangement is actually based on the Cronquist system of classification. And the System Garden is still used for teaching today as well. For many disciplines, including botany and horticulture, but also for primary and secondary education students, and visual art as well, where the VCA come into the garden once a year and run a course called Art in the Botanical. Now, also importantly, it serves as a home to plants that have a high conservation value, and where we can possibly aid their protection into the future in collaboration with other institutions. Today I'm presenting this discussion from my small studio at the back of my house. And I'm still fortunate enough during the COVID pandemic to still spend half of my time in the garden. And then the other time, half of the time, I spend it out here. I was really thrilled to be asked to present a discussion about Margaret Stones and her career as a botanical artist, which spanned over 60 years. And it's a profession which I actually have a personal connection with, because prior to beginning at the university, I worked in the animation and illustration industry. It was only after working alongside the School of Botany that I was inspired to explore opportunities that were offered to me in the industry of horticulture and botany. Botanical art can be described as a liaison between the disciplines of art and science. Specifically, the aim is obviously to capture the essence of the plant, its form, texture, its growth habit in a two-dimensional medium such as painting or drawing. Interestingly, botanical illustration started life as a means of creating a record for doctors so that they could identify the features of plants that they were using medicinally. And also in the age of discovery, botanical illustrators accompanied explorers and plant hunters around the world to record these newly discovered species to the Western world and what they looked like. So let's delve into the work and life of Margaret Stones, which actually began at the age of 16 at Swinburne Technical College, and followed on by some night classes at the National Gallery of Victoria as well. In the middle of World War II, though, Margaret began nursing, and it was shortly after completing her nursing exams that she actually contracted pulmonary tuberculosis, and she was hospitalised and confined to bed for 18 months. As complaining of sheer boredom as you would, Margaret had the opportunity and began drawing wildflowers that her friends would be collecting for her from the Grampians mountain range. And a pivotal point in Margaret's career was her physician, Dr. Clive Fitz, who, when came to examine Margaret, would see that the drawings that she was doing And he showed these works to a friend, close friend of his, Darryl Lindsay, who actually was the director of the National Gallery of Victoria at the time. Dr. Fitz and Darryl Lindsay encouraged Margaret to hold an exhibition. So in 1946 at the George's Gallery, she had her first exhibition that was a tremendous success. And the National Gallery of Victoria actually bought one of her works that was titled Kangaroo Paw and Smokebush, or Anagasanthes and Cotinus for the horticulturalists among us. Now, this image was commissioned at the same time by Russell Grimwade for his Magunya house, and this is the illustration titled Casuarina stricta. It was very typical of the work that was on display for Margaret's first exhibition. And this artwork, like her exhibition pieces, have a really impressive likeness to the species she's trying to capture here. But the one detail that's missing is and accustomed to botanical drawings, is that little bit more detail. Dr. Fitz introduced Margaret to Professor John Turner from the University of Melbourne's School of Botany. And Margaret joined for over a period of 3 years, summer expeditions to the Bogong High Plains. And this was a really important time in Margaret's artistic career. It was Professor Turner who introduced Margaret to the microscope and the inner workings of a flower. And this was the moment when Margaret gained her dissecting skills and increased her understanding of plant biology. Now, here is another image. Now, this one dates back to 1973, and it's a preliminary sketch of Themata triandra. And it just shows a detailed understanding of plant anatomy, which Margaret explored so thoroughly, and it shows how she became to be so well regarded. And I like showing this illustration. It's a preliminary sketch, and we can see get that inner workings into the artist's mind, where we get to see the colour tests and how Margaret wasn't happy with the bracts or the form of the inflorescence and put some crosses through it. Themata triandra is a grass species that's actually found all across the mainland of Australia and also in Tasmania. It's a grass that we have in the system garden as well. It was a really important Indigenous food source. The gallery has a collection, a really good collection of Margaret's works dating back to the 1940s that demonstrate her skill at the time and the accuracy of the subjects, such as these works from the late 1940s. This is Banksia species, which is a fantastic illustration. And then also Goodenia hederaceae, another really interesting work that Margaret created. So in 1952, Margaret Stones had saved a small amount of money and bought herself a one-way ticket to England. It was only a few months after arrival that she actually began working as a freelancer drawing herbarium specimens at Kew. But it was work as a principal contributing artist for Curtis's Botanical magazine, which is the world's longest running botanical periodical, that Margaret really established herself. The small format, Margaret said, was quite challenging because she had to capture and represent these plants in their full size. And this would be a position where Margaret would remain for 25 years, and she actually contributed 425 watercolours during her time there. In 1961, Lord Talbot, who was a keen gardener and rare plant enthusiast and Tasmanian property owner, commissioned Margaret Stones to produce 35 drawings of Tasmanian flora in a format that dwarfed the Curtis's size, where she was able to explore in a lot greater capacity the plants she was drawing. Interestingly, after an initial work in Tasmania, Margaret did the majority of her works for this in the UK, and the specimens were actually flown from Tasmania to Kew for her to draw. And occasionally, due to light issues, Margaret said that with the UK winter, she missed the opportunity to capture some of these specimens and had to actually request for additional material to be collected again and flown over to her. This was one of those instances where a project Margaret started expanded into something bigger, and over a 14-year period, Margaret ended up producing a 6-volume series and contained 254 drawings, and was titled The Endemic Flora of Tasmania. And the text for the publication was actually provided by a very well-established botanist in her own right, Winifred Curtis. And this publication was to be held in such high regard and to be one of the nation's finest and probably one of her most celebrated works. The image here we can see is an amazing illustration from UTAS. And it's just the species Reichia curtisiae from the Endemic Flora of Tasmania series. And it's a species that's actually named after Winifred Curtis, Margaret Stone's collaborator with that big project. And if we go back to the definition of what a botanical artist sets out to achieve, this would be it in a nutshell. It really captures the essence of the plant, its form and its texture and its growth, from that very typical texture on Reichia leaves to the way those older leaves were sort of beginning to brown. In 1976, Margaret Stones was commissioned to do 6 drawings on the flora of Louisiana. And this was through the Louisiana State University to commemorate the US bicentennial and 50 years of its Baton Rouge campus. Margaret's very first work, Quercus virginiana, made a tremendous impression on the people in Louisiana. And so people quickly went scrambling around and to find more funding. And this, like Margaret's previous work, expanded to become 250 drawings, which she completed over the following 10 years. Unlike the more tougher Tasmanian flora, the native plants of Louisiana couldn't survive air shipments. So it was imperative that Margaret actually visit Louisiana on a regular basis. And she set up camp there for some time while she completed her works. A typical day saw Margaret setting off early with the botanists to collect her specimens, and in the evening she would work really quickly to capture the plants while the material was still fresh. Often during the collecting trips, the botanists that were with Margaret would even discover new species, and Margaret Stones mentioned that was one of the most exciting parts of her job that she really got pleasure out of. And one collection trip, actually, she cut her hand really quite badly and required emergency treatment, ended up with 9 stitches in her hand. And this put her out of work for about 12 days, which I estimate is almost the amount of time it would have taken Margaret to almost complete one of her works. But by the end of this project, the people of Louisiana considered Margaret to be one of their own and held her up as a national treasure. And she was awarded an honorary doctorate in science in 1986. What I admire most about Margaret Stones is that she never subscribed to a particular set of rules during the process of botanical illustration. Through respect for the plants, actually. And Margaret Stones knew that every specimen had to be approached based on its own individual characteristics. Finally, I want to show one of my favourite images that's in the university's collection, and this is Crassula pedicillosa, and it's a species from Western Australia that Margaret drew in 1973. And again, I love the preliminary sketch element to it. I love the roughness and the handwriting and the pencil and the beautiful colour of the species that she captured. I hope you have enjoyed seeing a few of Margaret Stone's works, and I hope you get the opportunity to look up her work and even get the opportunity to see them in the future, one of the future exhibitions in the university's gallery. Thank you.